The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Welcome back to the Nova Society, a space where dialogue deepens understanding and civic responsibility comes to life. I'm Dr. Mark Bound, joined by our regular panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon. Together, we'll unpack the stories that matter most, exploring the headlines, the history, and the big ideas shaping today's conversations. Let's dive in and hear what the panel has for us today. So today we're going to be switching up a little bit. Brooklyn is off today, and we have a guest. And our guest is Travis Misurell, and he is the founder of Future Is Now Coalition America's Civic Unity. Future Is Now is upgrading how America chooses its leaders so you can finally vote for you. Today we'll dig into simple ways to see politics clearly, the up-down lens, people first versus power first, and how plugging into Digital Politics Hub helps citizens, journalists, and underdog candidates co-build digital democracy, the future home of American politics. Travis, welcome to the Nova Society podcast. So tell us about your organization and exactly what it is you're trying to accomplish. I mean, what is the end goal here?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So in one sentence, we're upgrading how America chooses its leaders. And the idea is we want to be clear that we're not just creating a tech tool. We're really building new civic infrastructure. And ultimately, we want Americans to be able to choose their leaders without all the noise, without the establishment media manipulation, party gatekeepers, big money. So we are building the long-term goal is digital democracy, which will be a one-stop shop, showcases all candidates equally. It'll show you everything from the two parties, third parties, independents, everyone side by side, where they stand, potential conflicts of interest by pulling in their funding sources, their promises, do they deliver on their promises? So that's the end goal. Again, digital democracy, that's phase two. Phase one right now is more of a coordination phase of just bring people together that we want to build this with America. We want to connect citizens, movements, grassroots candidates, even influencers, podcasters, pretty much all sorts of different Americans to build this with us. We want it to literally be citizen owned, where every American can opt into equal ownership of this technology. So they really get the ownership, the control, and when push comes to shove, it's really building a more direct democracy and building a system where there's not all that manipulation. You see who you want. You'll be able to check the electability and viability of candidates without media telling you that somebody's viable or not, just that they don't want them to win. And ultimately just trying to push all the manipulation aside and just let citizens kind of make their own decisions through a built out network.
It looks really interesting. I'll say, Travis, but could we take a big step back and just ask, did you come up with this on your own? Where are you coming from?
Yeah, this is all me. It kind of in some ways it's kind of something I've been working on all my life, but it started more sociologically and psychologically, just seeing how the world functions and how there's a lot more commonality between people, and it just the language and the positioning, the framing is what keeps us the most divided. And so I always felt like there's just a different way to frame a lot of things that we do in this world that would bring a lot more commonality, bring people together more. And then it was around 2016 is really when I started turning it specifically political, and then started putting this idea of the platform together. And so it's part tech, but really the biggest part is how we're framing this. It's going to be the digital embodiment of America's democracy. So it's really about how to frame this as a solution is bigger than the tech itself.
I think we all can agree that in today's American politics, there is a decrease in the trust in the political system. We've said numerous times on our podcast, it's probably time we have a better political class out there. Unfortunately, we're stuck with them for forever because, they basically can't get a job doing anything else. But my question would be, when we already have a system, we already have a mindset within the population that doesn't trust the machines. They don't trust mail-in voting. They barely trust paper ballots. How do you intend to address that? The viability of bringing back that, elections no matter how much data you see that says that there's very little, I mean, very, very little manipulation. How do you plan to address that issue?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so like part of what FiNC is going to be doing, our Solace Features Now coalition, is we're going to kind of try to be the embodiment of trust. We're not actually, a lot of the technology, we're not really building it ourselves. We're acting more of like the referee. We want to like bring people together, help coordinate, help different organizations work together to build this. There's different civic technologies that are already out there. We want to kind of piece some of those together, connect them. But the ultimate key to this is that our role is to guarantee that at the end of the day, the citizens are in charge of all of this. So both, like I mentioned, the legal structure are literally going to be where like it's almost like everyone either has 0 shares or 1 share. You either opted in, you have an ownership stake, you can't have 2, you either have 1 or you didn't opt in. So that's the legal side of it. But more importantly is before we even go too far in the building of DD, we want thousands of citizens involved. Right now we launched our digital politics hub, which is the coordination stage part, and we're trying to just get people involved, let them give their feedback and tell us what do they trust, what don't they trust, what priorities do they want involved in this, what features are they looking for, and ultimately what the goal is that really making people understand that they're building this with us. They have ownership in this. There's no authority above them. Like, yeah, again, to some extent, we're just more the referee rather than like dictating how this moves. So, there's that psychology, I forget the name of it, but like where people, if somebody helps build something, that adds trust, that adds commitment to it, that they're building this next layer of democracy themselves. It's not we're not doing it behind closed doors, building something, just handing it to them. They're literally going to see step by step. All the coding will be available for people to look at. There's going to be all these different movements that are going to be endorsing this over time, different candidates, different journalists. So it's a mix of like building a network of trust and people trusting things, massive amount of transparency, citizen ownership, all those pieces. And then the last piece would be technology. Eventually, we're going to move it onto a blockchain, which I know sometimes people, like a lot of people at this stage, don't know to trust that, but it's really a democratic way of storing information. So it's kind of chicken or the egg. We'll try to build that understanding first before we do it to a blockchain. But those are overall the main ways that we intend to do this, just being super transparent. Our goal is always just to be integrating this with society, always talking to America. Some of this, like a lot of the resources will go into technology, but a huge amount of resources is going to go to outreach and being on the floor with America, focus groups, polling, surveys. There's a lot of engagement involved.
And how far are you along?
So right now, like we just launched our digital politics hub this month. So this is more about gathering the citizens, journalists, candidates, different people that want to be involved. They're starting to plug things together. Really, digital democracy itself, we can't go too far until we reach a certain level of people power. Really, what we're trying to do is reach what we're calling our breakout moment, that like the more people are understanding this, it's starting to kind of escalate slowly but exponentially. Like right now, we're doing a big project with Vote Nevada, and there's a few reforms that they're plugged into that they're built. We're setting up a process of consensus technology that, like, right now they're arguing over certain strategies and stuff, and we're going to come in and go and like set up a process for them. And it's not even necessarily we're not at this moment we're not necessarily building new technology. We're using current technologies, but creating a new process of how to do a step-by-step to come to conclusions. So ultimately, like phase 1 is using what already exists in the world to start moving the needle forward, and that's what we've been building right now. And then stage 2 is building this separate platform. So right now we're meet people in social media platforms, Facebook, TikTok, all those things. We do a lot of lives and do a lot of podcasts, and then now we're piecing together different existing technologies to create a new process to do some of the functioning we want before actually moving in and creating something from scratch.
Okay, so your hub, and I've got your links here. It's hub.futureis.org, and that is up and running right now, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we will include that in our description, in our podcast description, and the website is futureis.org, and we suggest everybody go check that out because this does look like a very interesting endeavor, and it would be really nice if it worked. Now, my question is all the information you're going to be bringing in. Politicians like to control the narrative. How are you going to combat that? Because that's really what our biggest problem always is. Politicians and, special interest groups, and you want to get everybody involved. I get it. But how are you going to referee that component that makes people, first of all, confused and not trust? How do you plan to address that?
Yeah, love that question. So the way we want people to think about it is like politics is like an ecosystem. Now, right now, the ecosystem is bad, so it's like really a political machine. So you have the establishment media, you have big party gatekeepers, big donors, big corporations, special interests. They have a political machine. So in a lot of ways, they're working together. They don't have like one guy in the room like telling everyone what to do, but their greed and power keeps them pretty glued together and working in tangent with one another. What we're proposing, like, again, this is so much more than technology. We're talking about a citizen-owned ecosystem. So every establishment thing that exists, we want to replace with a decentralized, democratized replacement. So, for example, instead of the establishment media, we're replacing that by building a network of independent journalists, influencers, podcasters. So, like with the narrative that you're talking about, we want them to be the megaphone that the establishment media refuses to be. There's a lot of grassroots politicians, third parties, independents, and one of the number one complaints with them is that the mainstream media will not give them a voice. It will not put them on stage. So we're trying to build this network where that we want to connect the candidates directly to independent media and influencers and podcasters. And that's how they get their megaphone. That's how they get their message out. So it's with that. It's with other ways of using social media. It's really one of the biggest pieces to this is utilizing existing social media to spread the word, spread these newer narratives, these less controlled narratives. And that's also a lot of what the hub is meant to do, is help people amplify each other's voices over social media. So even if you're just a citizen, if there's a grassroots candidate you like, we're teaching them ways to amplify their voice, share, like, subscribe, all those kinds of things. And so we're trying to get journalists, movements, candidates, citizens to amplify each other's voices, get their voice louder in social media. And really younger, like millennials, Gen Z, younger, we're not watching much establishment mainstream media anymore. We do use social media and podcasts, and like podcasts is on a huge rise because they're more authentic, they're more transparent. And so that's the kind of space that we're utilizing to bring this newer narrative. So again, it's like independent journalists is replacing establishment media. The instead of the party gatekeepers, we want to interconnect there's independent coalitions, singular independent people, third parties, even people within the two parties that are just grassroots. They want to reform the two parties. We want to network them. And then all the citizens and grassroots efforts replaces the big money side of things. And by doing it digitally, it's way cheaper than the way the establishment does it. It's way more expensive to have TV commercials and billboards, but to amplify stuff over social media and word of mouth and just spreading it digitally is way more efficient and cheaper. So we don't even need to raise as much money to have the same impact and same loudness as the establishment does.
So, you mentioned social media, and I'm sure you've noticed that as soon as new social media comes in, like all of a sudden trolls and bots and all kinds of interference and noise is happening. How are we gonna rise above that?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge. We'll use all the most recent technologies and efforts to prevent that. It's always kind of a race. Like, they come up with new securities, and then the bots and stuff overcome that. So, to your point, we definitely have to put some security measures in place. I mean, one of the beauties of this is like there's this huge developer world of like very tech savvy people, and they're like, a lot of developers, they have this mindset of democratization, decentralization. So they're loving this stuff. Like the more we build out our developer connections, we're just have like tons of developers that are going to be part of this, that are going to, a lot of them will be volunteering to find solutions on this. So, push comes to shove, there's going to be a lot of innovation, because we're going to have people free, like they're building technology for their country for the sake of democracy. This is all like this massive team effort, massive amount of people power. So there's going to be a lot of bright minds on top of this with us, maybe incorporating some AI and then just regular algorithms, other anti-bot stuff. But so ultimately just having very talented people, bots is like the bots and that kind of stuff would be one of the top threats that we have to keep in mind from day one, pretty much. So we'll just have a lot of conversations on it.
So that's bots, and it sounds like you're looking at technological remedies for that. What about the idea of trolls? Like, just people, as soon as you're on social media, the anonymity of it means that people can go on there and say whatever they want to say. And, you're going to get inundated with right-wingers who are, really nasty, and you're going to get left-wingers probably who are really nasty. And you're going to have to try to say, hey, look, this is, we're not on the extremes here, I'm assuming. We're trying to be somewhat centrist. And how are we going to keep that element out of this equation, where it doesn't like just devolve into what X has devolved into, which is like, it's not even watchable anyway. It's not it's useless. It's become useless.
Yeah. And in response, and also to add on to that, first of all, I think Scott and I both think this is a great idea. If you can make this work, this is a great idea. But the existing platforms today, Facebook, X, whatever Twitter has become, or what, all those, they have their own rules as well. And let's face it, they will control the narrative as much as possible. We see that a lot with our podcast. The nice thing, we don't really promote our YouTube channel because they want to control content. All the other places we go, iHeartRadio, Spotify, those, they don't care about content. But it's also why we don't have, paid sponsorships, because we don't want somebody coming in and saying, listen, you're going to have to talk about this. You got to tone that down. We want to be able to talk about whatever we want. So you've got to get past that. Or are you really thinking about creating an entirely new platform beyond the Facebooks, beyond, make Facebook become, what was the one before Facebook? MySpace that like went away. Are you looking at, basically politically replacing those platforms, and this would be the place to go?
Absolutely. Yeah. So only phase one is where we're going to meet people where they are today, Facebook, Twitter, so-and-so. Then absolutely, digital democracy is going to be a completely different system. That's where people do their civic duty. They want to, get, who do I want to vote for? I have a local bill that I want to pass, or I don't want that playground being torn down. This is where they go. They'll no longer go to Facebook. They're going to go here. This is also be where journalists are guaranteed, podcasters, journalists, influencers, that they're not going to be controlled the way YouTube does that. I bring that up all the time, that they both do it through algorithms and the demonetization, that if your videos are too radical, then you get demonetized for your video. That's almost just as bad as censoring. Yeah, so we're building a platform that would replace all of that. So that answers your questions. For the previous question, though, for trolls and such, the way we're going to do that, so first of all, we're not necessarily saying we're centrist. What we're doing is that we want to create a lane for anyone, for any political belief. Like that's another key, that what we're doing is like, we have people in this movement that are, we have socialists, anarchists, moderate Republicans, centrist Democrats, progressives. We have a few people all across the aisle, even MAGA people are in this now. So we're not saying, because we're not telling people what policies to choose. We're building an infrastructure that lets them find others that are like-minded, that support what they're doing, and build accountability towards the candidates to to truly represent their constituents, things like that. So everyone is allowed on this. It's not like we wouldn't say we're middle of the road. It's more of like everyone has a lane here. But still, to your point, there will be trolls. And part of what we're doing, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with Reddit. The way Reddit has their some of their structure is that you have to stay on topic. Like if you're in a thread for like cleaning the kitchen and you start talking about cleaning your car, the moderators say, no, go to this other thread. This is about the kitchen, not about the car. And like, so they try to moderate by like making sure you're not off topic. And so we're going to do something similar. We're calling it clusters, where we're going to kind of separate like where people stand on issues. So for example, healthcare, we kind of see three main clusters of healthcare. You either want completely private healthcare and just a better way to drive pricing down through competition, or you're in the middle, you want mostly private, but then one public option that gets pricing down, or you want universal healthcare. And so, people could say, oh, there's 20 different ways to do healthcare. That's fine, but you're going to shove them in one of these three clusters. And like, there'll be subclusters. You could have a subcluster where it's more differentiated, but an average citizen, they're not going to care. They're like, I want universal healthcare. I don't care one of the 10, 20, somebody else decides that. I just want universal, whatever. So we're going to divide things by policy stances and things like that. And part of it too is like, we're not trying to group people by their political identity. It's specifically by the policy. So you might have a libertarian, but they want universal healthcare. People are very a la carte these days with policies. So you'll be in a topic specific to like a certain side of a policy without it being about your political lens. And then the last piece to that is there'll also be a way to prevent siloing. Like a lot of it, you're gonna see a lot of your like-minded views, but then we have to. I don't know exactly the answers to how we're gonna do it, but we're gonna plug in where like every now and then you are gonna hear an opposing side, and like you're gonna hear a different reason, a different thought, like a different opinion on the matter. But so ultimately, a lot of moderation is going to be on this of like, you need to be on topic. So, it's a fine line. We want freedom of speech. We don't want anyone feeling like they're being censored on their opinion, but you do have to stay on topic, and, you have to be, you can't just be like, oh, you're all stupid. It has to be productive, so those are the kind of things that are going to ultimately keep trolling to a minimum.
All right, hopefully. So you mentioned before something that you're doing in Nevada. I wasn't real clear about what that is, but I think you do kind of need like a score, you need to like make your mark with something. And I was looking at some of the material that you had sent over, and it looked like one of the topics that you're interested in is getting money out of politics. And I think across the board at this point, like no matter where you stand as far as like political orientation is concerned, I think we all recognize that money has distorted our politics to the point where something that has a 60% approval rating can't get done because somebody's paying off these politicians to not get it done, And look, this is America. You can't get 60% of people to agree that apple pie is good, So if you got a 60% approval rating on something, that's big. So let's just say, like, whether your issue ultimately is let's get money out of politics because we could have sensible gun laws without the interference of the NRA, and we could have whatever it is, How are you going to make a score? Like, how are you going to get on the board and gain the attention that you need to get like critical mass of people joining you?
Yeah, like there's definitely there's kind of several initiatives that we're working on to make that happen. There's the Vote Nevada thing, which we could get into in a bit, but definitely money in politics is our number one issue. If there's one thing that we're trying to address and make it clear to people, it's really like the concentration of power, but like the means of how they do it is the money in politics. And like, so a lot of it is just like how, like, we have a whole new layer, we have a whole new set of language. Like there's like a Democratic way to say stuff, Republican way. Now there's a digital politics way. We have like a whole different way to talk about issues that's more objective. It's structural related. It gets to the baseline. But so like a lot of part of what makes us unique is that we're not fighting for legislative change directly. Like a lot of our tools will help others do legislative change. But so, for example, the way we're going to fight money in politics is kind of like, we can't make money in politics illegal anytime soon. But what we could do is make it super transparent that when you put your zip code in, you're going to see all the candidates and you're going to see how much big money they take, and you're going to see what industry that money is coming from. So it's going to be super, super easy for an average citizen when they're deciding who they're going to vote for. So let's say I really care about healthcare. We're going to make it very clear. Look, this person took $10,000 from big pharma and $20,000 from the private healthcare industry. So you make your own decision, but there's a lot of conflicts of interest in there. So if you really do care about healthcare, you might not want to vote for this person, essentially. So that's one way, is building these detracting mechanisms to de-incentivize taking money. Because then a candidate's gonna be like, well, I really need that $10,000, but all my constituents are gonna see it. I know they're not gonna like if I take money from you. So it's gonna kind of deter them from making those decisions. So that's one half of it. And the other half of the money thing is by empowering all candidates, guaranteeing that every candidate gets visibility. Every candidate is going to have a chance to show themselves to their voters, to say, this is why you should vote for me. And they don't need to raise millions of dollars just to have a voice. They will have their chance. Yes, they'll get narrowed down over time. We're going to have to narrow, you're going to narrow down the field over time. But the idea is building a level playing field where, all the candidates are there. They all get chances to do debates and virtual town halls and all these different things. So, directly connecting all citizens, all candidates into one platform digitally does not take a lot of time. It's going to be user friendly, and everyone gets a level playing field. These are some of the mechanisms that will start moving the needle significantly towards, really it's going to lower the influence of money in politics. Then once you have better candidates in office, then eventually you can start doing the real reforms. So that's really how we're going to do that. And then just to answer that other question you had about how to make our mark, it's really that the more we talk about our strategy, no one's doing our strategy. No one is piecing together the way we're trying to piece together all these different these factions of sewing in independent journalists with candidates hasn't really been done in this kind of way before. All the ways that we're doing this is just so unique. The hardest part is really saying it as concise as possible, so I could give a quick package this is what makes it so different. That's the biggest challenge. But we're getting closer and closer now with the tighter language. We have to update our website even and all that with the newest language that we just came up with. But ultimately, a lot of people are seeing already that this is just fundamentally different from anything else. We're here to completely disrupt how campaigns are done, how people do politics, completely changing the game. So it's more about our own, what we're doing, our narrative, how this could change things, really giving hope for a lot of people are saying that we're giving them new hope for this sounds like the answer to the future. And not because we have all the solutions, because we're going to plug in all potential solutions into this solution. What about Forward Party? They're plugged in too. We want to amplify them, give them a shot. Third parties, plug them in. Independents, plug them in. Maybe it's only going to be two parties forever. Plug that in too. We just need better Democrats, better Republicans. So all solutions that already exist that get trampled by the system, we're building infrastructure that ties it all into one shared infrastructure.
So, by the way I see this, and I think the greatest hurdle you've got, and like I said, I think this is a great idea. You're actually trying to change the ideology of the American electorate.
Yeah.
And right now, today, that American electorate is so tribalized. It would be nice if we had cafeteria MAGAs or people that just the entire electorate attitude has got to change in a fundamental way in what you're trying to do. And I see that if we were able to do that, third parties would actually have a chance.
Yeah.
Because how many people walk in and just say, oh, I'm hitting R or I'm hitting D all the way up and down, and you're trying to change that attitude. And we've said on this podcast, the only prediction that I ever make is how long it'll be for us to get back to normal politics. But I'm talking about normal politics to what we've always known politics to be. I've been saying 2036, maybe 2040, before we get back to that. So how long do you think it's going to take your organization and what you're building here to be able to change that ideology? When are we going to see the fruits of this, what I see as a very worthwhile effort?
Yeah, wonderful question. Yeah, so there's different like milestones and phases to get to the final end goal. Like, because really the end goal that I dream of is like where a candidate, when they're about to start running, they're going to say, "Let me look at my candidates. Let me look at my district, see where they stand on issues, and then let me build my policies around what my constituents want." And like, that's the maybe 20, 30-year end goal. And having like an amendment to get money out of politics, stuff like that. It's like 20, 30 years. But this really comes into phases. So to your point about like, yes, there's a lot of tribalism and stuff like that. But it's also, to be clear, it's like there's a lot of like people like us that are just like very, very political. And then there's most people are not political at all. They just jump in during election time, and like they're not as in it as the others, and they're actually the people so far that really jump in and love what we're about, because they're not so tribal and stuck in a specific party mentality. So that's one piece, is that we don't see, like, right now when people campaign, they target likely voters. We believe that everyone could be a likely voter when it comes to digital politics, because it's like common sense politics. It gets rid of all the BS, all the performativeness. So, and I have people on our team that like have never voted before, and now they've been volunteering a year or two to help me succeed with this when they've never been political before. So this wakes a lot of people up. The other key, though, is that we're not trying to tell people their policies are wrong. Like, we're starting with the common ground of what we know America wants. So like money out of politics, and potentially term limits on Congress, and that getting rid of the insider trading that Washington, keeps in the stock market. And, there's even ranked choice voting. Not everyone knows about ranked choice voting, but it's gaining a lot of popularity. So there's a lot of like infrastructure related policies that we can bring people together, that there's so many things that we have common. We're not ready to debate healthcare. We're not ready to debate immigration to that level. Like right now, we just want to start at these fundamental things that we know like 70, 80, 85% of Americans agree on, bring them on that. And then as they get involved, start teaching them this new lens, the digital politics lens of seeing things from more of this infrastructure thing. It's like, policies and politics is the outer layer. It's like if policies are like the content on Facebook, what you post and what you say, that's the content. But Facebook itself is infrastructure. So we're building the infrastructure that politics will live inside of, and so they can start doing the politics they do now. They can do it inside this infrastructure as we build it. They don't need to make a 180 yet. There's certain conversations that they need to have more of an objective lens, and we're talking about money out of politics, things like that. But then we're going to build the clusters where they can talk about the way the side of their issues that they want to talk about. But ultimately, it'll be a gradual process, that the more we're pulling away the establishment biases, the manipulation, the special interests, like this is almost like a safe place that all the special interests don't get to influence. You can't come in and buy a louder voice on this platform. Your louder voice has to come from natural, like, democratic algorithms. And so, like, first they might come onto this platform and do a lot of what they normally do in the past, but then we're also already planting the seed of digital politics and the end goal of like cleaning up the system, true representation, money out of politics. That's the core fundamental thing that glues us together. And then slowly it starts moving to a more honest system, more objective system. And then all these people start coming into this, and before you know it, like now they're listening to better journalists, and these independent journalists, there's going to be rating systems that keep them honest and objective. And, all these different things that just build towards a healthier democracy. Facebook tries to connect people to fight with each other and cause more drama. This is basically the opposite. We're focusing on commonalities and common goals, and like, oh, you're a progressive, you're a libertarian. I know you fight on a lot of issues, but you both want money in politics. You both want money out of politics. You both want third parties to be viable. You want this, you want that. Look at all that you guys could work together on. Let's work together on what we like together, and then just don't bother each other when it comes to the other stuff. Yeah, there's going to be places where you're going to compete with one another, but they're not your enemy. When there's the bigger enemy is this 1% concentration of power. That's the enemy. If you don't agree with the libertarians, that's fine, but just stay out of each other's way when you guys disagree. But you're both promoting true democracy, and that's the commonality. So these are kind of the ways that we're planning on this.
So you're actually looking at civil social discourse.
Yeah.
That would be nice for a change.
Yeah.
How you doing with college kids?
They're a good one. They're an easier mark. Younger people, definitely Gen Z, millennial, definitely Gen Z is one of our strongest demographics. So been good with that. And eventually we don't have the means yet, but we're going to build different packages where you could use some of this to teach civics in colleges. And so, there's so many layers that this will have eventually, just about the manpower.
Of course, we all know that politicians today get in and promise you the world, and then at the very end, they don't do it. Is your platform going to have an accountability to those that get elected? Is there going to be a space there where these politicians that come in and say, I'm going to do this, and then turn out not doing any of that? Is that going to be a component of your platform as well?
Absolutely. That's probably one of the top 3 to 5 priorities in this entire thing is about accountability of candidates. Like, we want it to be super, super clear. This is their promise. This is how much they fought for it, and it's harder to say than done, because there's all all this, there's a lot of subjectivity, a lot of stuff, but yeah, that is absolutely one of the top focuses, is to make it very clear how consistent is somebody in delivering their promises. Absolutely.
That truly is a big deal as far as politics is concerned. So many people today vote against their own interests because they just simply don't understand. And I think that's probably going to be one of the greatest hurdles you're going to have to overcome is, and we've said this numerous times, most Americans have a 5th grade or 7th grade understanding of civics. They have no clue about, when they talk about the Constitution, they have no clue what it actually says or what it actually means. And, educating the public, making them more informed, making them also informed that, and I like this idea of yours of having people, listen, we disagree on this. That's not what we're talking about. We're going to be talking about the things that we actually agree upon and work toward that. Now, let's find a candidate whose platform, as opposed to the Democratic platform or the Republican platform, meets more what we are looking for, meets more the needs that we have. And I think that's going to be an extremely a big hurdle. But if you can make that hurdle happen, I think you're going to find that it's going to be extremely successful. And, I'm looking forward to seeing this thing progress. I truly am, because this is something that's necessary. We have to change. If democracy is going to be saved, we have to change the way we look at democracy today.
Yeah.
And we still look at it the same way we looked at it in the 19th century. We have got to look at it differently today and understand the 20th century. And we've got to take, as you said, we've got to take money out of it. Of course, that's going to be a little hard with the Supreme Court ruling. Yeah. And that makes it tough. Yeah. Don't agree with that ruling, but hey, it is what it is. Hopefully someday that'll go away. And the idea of the 2-party system that has people locked in, there's giving them this avenue where they can actually, first of all, meet with people that are like-minded and have the same policy, getting them to understand that policy is more important than party.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are going to be huge things to get past. And that just because Joe doesn't agree with you does not make him your enemy. That's another big thing. And yeah, this is going to be, I think if this is successful, and I really do hope that it will be, this is something that could actually move us toward a more 21st century democratic ideology.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to, as I say, the 18th century, which we're basically still living in. But yeah. You got anything else, Scott?
I just want to know how we can help.
Yes. Well, and I'll tell you one thing, Travis, we will have you back if you want to come back. We'll bring it back regularly so you can update us on all this and we can ask more questions on it. I know that this has been kind of, just an overview, but just looking at the stuff that we were sent, there's a lot of questions. We could do this for hours and hours. There's no doubt about it. And we do think that, this is definitely worthwhile and something that myself and Dr. Gershwer would be more than happy to become involved into and promote it as best as we can. But this is interesting, and I'm glad somebody thought of it. Now, let's face it. You said 20 to 30 years. Now, me and Dr. Scott probably won't be around at that point in time for us to see. So can we move a little faster than that, please? Because we would like to see it. But 30 years, I don't know. I don't think in my 90s I'm even going to care at that point in time.
Yeah, and to be clear, that's like the like utopia version is then no, we're gonna see some impact. We're hoping we have a little bit of sway by the midterms, and actually hoping that to really impact some changes to the primaries by the next general election. So this will happen fast because people are desperate for change. All the numbers, there's droves of people now that are registering as nonpartisan. There's now more people identify as independent than they do in the two parties now. So stat after stat shows people are done with this two-party system. So people desperately want change, and just nobody else has a true answer how to move this forward. So this is it, and again, it's it because it doesn't exclude others. It plugs everyone in.
So you mentioned the midterms. What would you see as a success for this organization that you could look at and measure and say, hey, that's a success. We made a difference in the midterms in 2026.
Yeah, so it's actually been recently. We've been narrowing it down much stronger. That we're figuring out a way right now. It's still in development, but a way to figure out what are the top between 3 to 7 top core issues that America cares about, and then build some form of the politician report cards by the midterm of who says yes and who says no to each of these things. So if it's money in politics, have all the federal people running, who's in support of getting money out, who's not in support, that kind of stuff. So having a sliver of showing where these candidates truly stand on certain issues, not what they say they stand on, where do they truly stand on some of the top issues that America cares about. And so the goal would be having that clearly up on our platform, and then showing that actually swayed some decisions for some voters. Because a lot of people are one issue voters or 3 issue voters, and if we're spelling out where everyone stands on those issues, hopefully adding some. We just want to show that we're already going to add a little bit of sway on who's voting for who, in the election, and then much bigger goals for the general election. But that, and just getting a lot of buy-in is really key. That if we just have a lot of people involved, really understanding how we're explaining the core problem and how we're articulating the issue, and slowly start becoming a household name. People start learning about what FiNC is doing and the future of digital democracy. I'm hoping that actually would happen rather quickly. Don't forget, this is a digital age, so we can really get people excited about this. Word spreads very quickly these days. It's just a matter of motivating people to want to spread the word. So if you get people really excited and see this as a true solution, it can happen fast. And we're getting closer now that I have a lot better language. Still, one more tightening up to do, but we're really good with the language now and starting to build these really good relationships with different people. So we're hoping to have some little bit of sway by the midterms.
All right, well, if we can help, come back and tell us how.
That's right. Just let us know. So the organization is Future is Now Coalition. Also FiNC. Has anybody said maybe you ought to change that?
Yeah, Travis, you're too young to know what FiNC means.
It's only the older generations say that. Yeah,
we remember the Wizard of Id. The king is a FiNC. So But the Future is Now Coalition. Travis Misurell, and I hope I'm saying that properly, even though my bad French. We want to have you back, and as Scott said, any way that we can help, please let us know, because I think this is really a well thought out and the future, hopefully, of what the politics in the United States is going to look like, and we really hope that this really does well. So we want to thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Travis.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great, really great.
And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the FiNC Research Institute. We want to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing team, Apple Podcasts, the largest source of podcast and music online, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your destination for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. And most importantly, we want to thank you, our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society could not be possible. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on the platform of your choice. It's easy, it's free, and helps our channel grow. For questions or comments, you can reach us at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So on behalf of Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershworth, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power of society is knowledge. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!